The broadcast is live. As far as I know, Shambhavi, we are live right now. But I can't hear you. You have to unmute yourself.
Okay. A very good evening to everyone. I'm Shambhavi and I'm the co-founder of Legporium. I would like to welcome all of you to the 4th International Webinar on COVID-19 Education Crisis, which is brought to you by Legporium and Unique Coaching Center in association with Charity United, Youth for Human Rights International and Clarity Learning Center. Our first speaker will be Mr. Jacobus Lavooij. He is a freelance linguistic quality assurance partner of RWS Moravia, a language partner of major brands like Amazon, Adobe, etc., with more than 20 years of experience in the language industry. Without wasting any further time, I would like to call upon Sir to please come and commence the event. Thank you.
Thank you, Shambhavi. I will start sharing my screen. And if you see my screen, if you can let me know that that works. Let me see. Do you see my screen? Can somebody tell me if my stream is seen?
Yes, sir, you can proceed.
Okay, good. So welcome. I was actually going to be the second speaker, but as you might have heard, we have some connection problems with several speakers. It seems to be that worldwide we have some issues with internet connections. So yeah, my name is Jacobus Lavooij. I am actually from the Netherlands, 57 years old, and I moved to Sweden a couple of days ago. So I'm still in the middle of a move and planned this in my schedule, and I'm very happy to do that. And I'm going to talk to you about the educational crisis that we have today. But I'm first going to introduce you a little more to myself, so you have an idea who I am and what I do and what I did. Now, we're talking about education. My school experience myself, I had the usual European educational path, meaning, you know, like you start at 4 years old going to sort of kindergarten, 6 years old, you go to basic school, 12 years old, you go to middle school. And then I had a technical commercial education, which was at the time pretty unique. This school, it was a test school where we had 17 major issues that we were studying, including law, administrative skills, languages, and of course the technical parts. And I was I was basically educated as a technician, and that's my school background. As a kid, I was reading a lot of history books. I loved history. I have been reading a lot of history about France in particular, because there was some French historical figures that I really liked, including one farmer in the 13th century who made it as second in command, and that was quite an accomplishment. I like people that, you know, have accomplishments which are quite unique. After my school, the world became my school, actually. If you are a teacher or you are someone who has left school years ago, you probably notice that when you are at school, you learn things, and then you go out into the wide world, and then you find out that the things that you learned are old things, maybe, or old issues, or things that have changed. And then you go out in the wide world and you learn, in my case, for instance, as an electric technician, that all kinds of things have changed, like production of materials have changed. So you start wondering, why did you go to school, and why did you do your exam, and why did you learn these things? But also, what I mean with the world as a school is I learned about people. Yeah. So it was, as a youngster, I was very interested in the world and all in it. At a certain point, I went to the army. I trained as an army truck driver. I had actually a very interesting army experience. I was based in Germany. At the time, the Berlin Wall was still there. And I was promoted to a corporal in a platoon of 25. And at the day that the Berlin Wall went down, I was actually in the field, armed, and basically, visiting my personnel, my other soldiers in the field. When I ran into a Russian officer, and you can imagine running into a Russian officer in the West is not very common in these days. So I actually was one of the first military personnel that met with military personnel of the Russians. And he was laughing, and smiling and waving, which I didn't understand because I had no idea that this wall had been going down. So very interesting meeting, and also, again, an experience that made me see that, a lot in the world is not what it seems. So the Russian was supposed to be my enemy, but he didn't act as an enemy, clearly. So in the introduction, you heard that I work for a company called Moravia. That's not, I just didn't end up like that, like there's a whole history on writing and educational skills. I wrote as a kid and a teenager. I wrote some poetry, very bad poetry, by the way, but I didn't publish it. But I did publish in major papers and sports magazines. And later on, when I started working for myself, I wrote a lot of blog posts for several blogs that I was running at the time. I had a video channel where I was on YouTube, where I had over 5,000 subscribers. And I was writing texts for videos there. And that was on a subject of WordPress, which is basically a system that you can publish websites on the web on. Then I did editorial training. I was trained actually by one of the highest trained editors in the world. He was the editor-in-chief of UPI, which stands for United Press International. At that time, I'm talking about the early 90s, that was one of the biggest agencies in the world. And I learned the ropes about dealing with the mainstream media. And these days, that's quite a topic, of course, because if you read the media these days, there is a lot of noise from the media coming, and a lot of opinions and a lot of non-facts. And I learned from him how the media is changing the story to influence the public opinion. If you know how media started in the 1800s, the first paper was actually a piece of paper that was promoting something, and that's how paper started. So it was basically invented to promote products, and then people started, writing stories. And these days, these stories are mainly political engaged. So papers are used to, send out messages of political issues. Then I did Also, during this training, I did practical training in TV and radio appearances. It was very nice because they would appear in front of you while you, for instance, had dinner with each other in this training. They would appear all of a sudden with TV cameras and starting asking you very interesting questions that you had to answer immediately. And then after, they basically critiqued you, meaning, they told you how you were doing. And they also said that, like there's all kinds of tricks to make you look bad on TV and radio. So you learned how to avoid these things. Then I did other practicals there also. I actually had to set up an event for the ambassador of Venezuela. And we got about 5 minutes of preparation time for that. And we were trained to do a public relations event on the spot. So that was very interesting. Right now, I am doing all kinds of things, but one of my main activities is that I'm a language quality assurance executive for RWS Moravia, which is a company with over 2,000 staff. And I work for some very big accounts that they have, which you all know, but I'm not really allowed to say here, so I won't. Then, as I said, I was trained in public relations. I was trained with a UK member of parliament and USA celebrities, and also with business people. It was very interesting. And then I also traveled a lot and learned to appreciate my fellow men and lost a lot of prejudices. Like when I was young, I was always thinking in terms of the Germans, the English, the French. And I had my opinion about these people without actually knowing the individual people. And when I started traveling, I started seeing that there is actually only, for me, 2 types of people. And one type is the very nice type that you can have a very nice time with and that you can have a conversation with and that you might even have different opinions with, but still there's respect. And the other type is people that do not have respect for anything, including you, me, nature, etc. And I also do public relations for Charity United, of which you will see more speakers today, I hope, if the internet lets us. And then I turn to what I want to talk with you about, and it's today's educational crisis. Actually, there's 800 million kids without education for over half a year, pretty much already. In your country, most of the listeners are from India. I think they go back to school in September, we hope. And then basically you will see that a lot of kids in India will have, or practically every single kid in India will not have any education for over half a year. And that impact will be felt for many years because we basically collectively lost 6 months in education. And nobody's talking about this really. Now, basically what I was looking at was like, okay, we postpone a future, like the future is basically shifted 6 months ahead for these kids. The problem is you can't postpone time. Time is a very stable factor. You wake up in the morning and you know that when you go to bed in the evening and you wake up again in the morning, 24 hours have passed by and you don't get them back. So that's a very stable factor. Time is not one back really. It goes, it moves. And if you don't educate kids, you lose this time. And it's so bad these days. I mean, I was reading some posts online about the US. And fear has spread to such a degree that teachers right now even refuse to teach. So education is really under fire. And that's not a good thing. Now, I want to talk to you about something which is called control. And control has a lot to do with education. And you might not think about control when you think about education, but I'm going to show you what the connection is between the two. Now, you can control people by not educating them. I am not saying that this whole situation with COVID is to not educate people. That's not what I'm saying. I'm only saying that you can control people by not educating them. If you do not educate someone, he basically is dependent on you. And you see this with kids. If you don't educate kids, then they will be dependent on you. Yeah. Besides that, people who are not educated usually think less for themselves. They look at opinions of others and they basically take another's opinion as a fact. And besides that, they feel less confident. Now, control in history got a very bad name, and it started to be seen as force. You know, like control people by force. You see this in police states. And that's why people don't like the word control so much. And that's also why I'd like to talk a bit more about it, because there's control and there's no control. And there is not such a thing as bad control. Now, I'll give you an example. If you drive in the street and you think it's funny to, drive around and just take the hands off the wheel, you'll end up somewhere in a ditch, or you'll drive into a building or whatever, like there's no control there. That's not bad control, there's just no control. Yeah. For the same, we can also say, to give a similar example, if you don't study for an exam, you will not pass the exam. That is also no control. You don't take control over your future. You see, control is something that you can take over a situation. And if you don't take control, then you become a sort of an effect of a situation. You see, the guy that leaves the wheel from the car untouched will lose control and will be the effect, and will go and end up in hospital if he's lucky. Now, real control is to master something so it can be used to your benefit or to the benefit of others. That's basically my simple definition of control. Yeah, that you can master something and you can use it to your benefit or to the benefit of others. Now, control is associated with experts. I need to say something about experts. There is a definition of expert that I found in the Collins Dictionary, which says a person who's very skilled at doing something or who knows a lot about a particular subject. That is a definition of an expert. What I see around me a lot is a perceived definition of an expert. In other words, people in general, they perceive an expert as a person who knows everything about a particular subject and can tell me what to do. That is not what an expert is. There's a funny definition for expert, and it's an obsolete definition in the Merriam-Webster's, and it says they're experienced. So to continue on this expert thing, how come experts are not having the same visions or outcome or results in their opinions and sayings? Like, you have a lot of experts these days. Where I come from in Holland, for instance, there's two veterinarians. That is, veterinarian is a doctor for animals, who actually run the country right now on the whole situation with COVID. And they say country needs to be closed down, etc., because of viruses, etc. Now, I don't really want to go into the whole COVID thing, but they are being pushed as experts. The fact is, they're not. They're not experts, and but people perceive them as experts. And there are unknown facts, and that's why some experts say we need to wear face masks. Other experts say we need to not wear face masks, etc. With education, you basically have something similar, because there is like different educational institutions. Like in the US, for instance, every parent wants to send his kids to Harvard or some other very prestigious school. And they teach different things. So they take a fact and they give their opinion about it. So that's why you have experts that basically say different things. Now, experts, quote unquote, also are forcing people to accept facts. And they force people to not think for themselves because the expert knows. And that is not always true. Now, I just said something about COVID and education. Right now, experts, and I should have actually said experts, quote unquote, have free reign. That means that they have all the opportunity to do whatever they want and control people. And again, we have two definitions of control. I mentioned them before. And one of it is the power to influence or direct people's behavior or the course of events. That is a definition of control that a lot of people perceive, and it has a negative connotation, meaning a negative meaning for them, versus to master something so it can be used to your benefit or to the benefit of others. So how do we take control to handle this crisis, this educational crisis? Now, you might know or not know that in a language, and language is sort of my specialty, I deal with language a lot daily. I have been running a place for 20 years where I was dealing with 50 people that I had to correct on language, and I had to quality check their language that was translated from English. And I could see in this time that during this time that a lot of people were well educated, but I could also see that a lot of people were educated in a certain time zone. No, not time zone, in a certain period of time. Like I was born in 1962. So my language education was in the early 70s. And people that are educated in the same time period have certain peculiarities with language. So I could also, when I could see a language, when I could see a translation, I could actually understand from which time period the person was. And at a certain point, I recognized all of my translators. Whatever they put in front of me, I knew exactly who was doing what, because of misunderstandings that they had and that they didn't solve, and style of writing, etc. And now, what I saw a lot was there was no control of small common words. Like there was a previous speaker planned. You see here in the screen the word Ollie. Ollie is a little elephant, and you're going to see a bit more about it later on in this presentation. But this is something that people came up with to show the definitions of very small common words. And I think the sample that she has for you is the word at, A-T in English. These small common words sometimes are totally misduplicated, and that leads to misduplication in life. And if you misduplicate things in life, you will be less successful in life. It's that simple, because people will not understand you. And to be successful in life, you need to understand things. And these small common words, they're actually the glue of a language. Yeah, and they're very important. Now, when we want to handle this crisis, we need to teach kids to learn the language properly. And when we are talking about India, one of the speakers today will be William. And William is running all kinds of educational projects in India. And he is working with several people to get kids to learn a language properly, because it's so important for their future and for the future as a country. Yeah, you need to teach duplication, no rote learning. In Europe and in the US, we do a lot of rote learning. That's what I know. I don't really know the full situation in India, but I have spoken to some Indian people that know a bit about education, and it's not a lot different in India, what I understood. Yeah, we need to start teaching duplication and stop rote learning. You don't learn for an exam, you learn for application, because then you will go ahead. And if we get kids to understand, this generation of kids to understand how to really understand a language, how to really use a language for their future endeavors, then we will move out of all kinds of other crises also. Yeah. Now, we teach our future generation. Yeah. And we solve problems by controlling fields of expertise. I'll give you an example. If someone is a technician and he needs to build bridges, he better knows how to solve problems, because if he can't solve problems, then the bridge will, fall in the water, and nothing will happen. People will not be able to move. But I am pushing this thing of teaching our future generation, because with an educated generation, the current crisis would have been contained. And what I mean with that is, right now, everybody is, as I call it, yelling something, meaning, everybody can have his opinion, which is fine, but we should also see which opinion counts and which is not counting. And it seems like we are using a lot of opinions right now of people that crash our educational field. And we should, frankly, not listen to them and, get education going again. Now, if you teach a future generation the control over language, you have a generation that will be able to control their environment and communication, and thus communicate with each other to solve the problems we are dealing with in this world. And that's the end of my, let me stop sharing here. That's the end of my talk to you, because the whole issue of communication, let me see if I am back here. I'm back in the screen now. And the whole issue of communication will be taken up by Avi, and he's the next speaker. So I guess Avi can start speaking. There she is. Good.
Thank you so much, sir. That was very intriguing.
Okay.
Next up, we have Miss Megan Tucker. So before she begins, let me tell everyone a little bit about her, about what an inspirational, unstoppable, and beautiful woman she is. Ma'am has over 30 years of experience in child counseling and teaching. She has been the principal of an international school in Denmark, and she's also the founder of Charity United, a charity that has brought relief and education to thousands of children around the world. Ma'am has also lectured in top boarding schools and universities around the world, as well as done hands-on work running relief and educational programs in all corners of the globe, tutoring children of all ages. So in a corporate setting, she has tutored and mentored English as a second language to executive directors and top executives of international organizations. But her passion, however, has always been children. So, ma'am, now kindly take over.
All right. Hi, thank you very much for that introduction. So yes, my name is Megan. I'm the founder and executive director of Charity United. And I wanted to speak to you a little bit about some of my experiences working with children, both in education and in crisis situations, because currently the situation with the lockdowns around the world as a result of the COVID situation is a bit of a mix of both of those problems, or both of those subjects, crisis and education combined. And there's actually an educational crisis, as Yap was discussing. So I have dealt with everything from, like she said, executive directors of large organizations and university and corporate settings, down to refugee camps and emergency aid that is done very quickly on the fly and often amongst a lot of panic and hysteria, where one needs to just stay calm and be a calming influence on those around them as much as possible. And it's a funny thing, but there's a particular factor that's involved in both education and in crisis management, you could call it, in any crisis situation, that is very often easily overlooked and is very, very important. And that's actually the subject of help, which may sound very simple to begin with, but it's amazing how it can be overlooked. I will give an example. When I used to deal with refugees in Eastern Europe, for example, we would often find that we had thousands of refugees coming through every day. And to me and my team members, it was a natural course of events that every day when we spoke to them, we would really take the time to look into their eyes, to say hello, to smile at them, to ask the name of the children, to listen to their stories if we didn't have too much of a language barrier, and to really make it clear to them that they mattered and that they were important to us and that we cared about their well-being. And what we would sometimes find was that this was different from what they were used to. We would sometimes observe it firsthand, or we would hear about it, where some of the other aid workers or people who were working in different organizations would tend to lose sight of that and would just kind of be shoving the hat on the baby's head or giving them the food in a very rough manner and treating them a little bit like, okay, next. I wouldn't say they're treating them like animals quite, but a little bit like that personal connection was gone. And what that resulted in was that the refugees themselves were not being reminded of the factor of help. Because one way you can remind someone of this factor of help is to make it clear that you want to help them. That sounds very obvious, but it's so easily forgotten. So for example, if you had let's say you had a starving child come to you, maybe a 3-year-old, crying, wet, cold, starving, and you're going to give this 3-year-old maybe some milk. Well, you can shove it in her hand, and then, she'll keep crying and maybe she'll drink it, or maybe she'll throw it on the ground even if she's starving. Or you can take the time to get into communication with her, look her in the eyes, smile at her, warm her up, make a joke, play with something, whatever, and actually show her that you care about her and that you want to help her. And then not only will she take the milk, but the help flow that you give this child is going to be more valuable to her than the milk itself. And I have seen children who were just really in the depths of despair, just really having a horrible life, and who had been having quite a horrible life for months on end, crying, shivering, the whole thing, just come right out of it, just from the fact that they could tell someone cared and actually wanted to help them. And even if you do want to help, but you don't show it because you're just so busy just giving the next milk to the next baby or helping the next child in school get his pen or whatever it is, and you don't take that moment to show that you care and that you actually want to help the child or any individual, it's easy to overlook, especially in a crisis, but it's very, very important. And it makes a world of difference if you can include that little step. Now, there's other directions that this help can go in, because people also like to help each other, even to people who are considered to be victims of a crisis, whether it's a refugee crisis like the example I gave, or whether it would be perhaps children in the slums during the lockdown in India, or any situation. Well, they don't want to just receive help. They want to give help. They will want to be able to help each other. So, for example, we would very often have refugees who would come to us and ask, can we also volunteer for a few hours and help you help the other refugees? And when we allowed them to do that, we said, okay, good, here's the mittens, and you need to find the children without mittens and get the mittens, make sure the boys have blue ones and the girls have pink ones, otherwise they get upset. And we would, give them a little job to do. it would just make their day. They would be extremely happy, and they would just leave us with big smiles. And these are people who just lost families, houses, everything that they owned, and are fleeing a war zone. But just being able to help other people, strangers, also helping us to help them for a few hours. And they would, it would make a huge difference to them. And of course, if they could help us with something like maybe loaning my husband a cigarette or giving my husband a cigarette or something like this, that's a help that they are then allowed to do. So children very often want to help. They want to contribute. And it's easy to make the mistake of not allowing them to do it because maybe they're going to make a mess of things, which is true. But it's also, maybe the child wants to help you clean the kitchen, but he doesn't really know what he's doing. So the next thing you know, there's water everywhere, right? Okay, fine. But letting that child do what he can to contribute or to try to help will make a huge difference in his willingness and his ability to study, to get along with his friends, to just have a happy life, to develop, and will also keep him in a much better relationship with his teachers, his parents, and so on, because children want to give help. They don't want to just receive it. They want to give it to you. They want to give it to others, and they want to give it to themselves. So even letting them, take care of themselves, teaching them how to properly take care of themselves, to help themselves, this comes into it as well. In a crisis situation, it is very easy to overlook this step because you can get into the urgency of, this many people need food, this many people need notebooks, and this child hasn't been to school in 3 months, and and all the numbers. And then you can very easily get so rushed in all of this that you forget this step. But when you put that step in, you'll find that things tend to go much more smoothly. And you will regain any time you think you may have lost in taking those few extra moments here and there to show others that you want to help them, to allow them to help each other, to allow them to help you, and to allow them to help themselves. So when we go into the field of education, it's also very important to think with this in terms of, could a child sometimes help another child to study in some way? And you'll find that there are ways to do this, which I won't get into right this moment, but there are. Could the child have a way to help the teacher? Can we help to teach the child how to teach the other children little bits of things, or how to take the other children through an exercise? Or can we teach the children how to play a game with each other, which is educational, or how to check each other on the things that they're learning and check their understanding? When you allow the children to contribute in this way and to help each other, this will make a world of difference. It's almost hard to believe until you see it. They start to become more responsible, they start to become calmer, and they contribute more. And then the funny thing is that when you put that in and you do that for a while and you start allowing them to help you and others and themselves, you'll also find they become a lot easier to control. And I am referring a little bit back to what Jaap was talking about on control. I mean control in a good way. I mean, if you don't want to have children running around screaming and you don't know where they are and they're hitting each other and they're not doing what they're supposed to and then you basically want to have some control. You want them to sit and study and smile and learn and do what they're told when it's logical to some degree. So that is control. And when you allow them to help, when you show them that you're really trying to help them, when you allow them to receive help, give help, help themselves, help each other, you will also start to find that you have less difficulties with control, or feeling the need to control them, or that you have them out of control, or that they're not doing what they're supposed to when they're supposed to be doing it, or you feel like you're running around chasing them, or even maybe in smaller ways if they start doing little things when your back is turned or fighting with each other and you feel they're a little out of control. That would be something that can be improved first by starting with just allowing them to help as much as possible. So that's mainly what I wanted to discuss. I can think of a few more examples because I probably have a few more minutes. But we had a child once, a 3-year-old, for example, and we were giving out mittens and gloves and hats to the different children who were cold and needed them and so on. And this child just started picking up mittens and running around handing them out to people. And I'm sure everyone has seen this at times, and then they just get exuberant with joy because they feel like they can also help. They can also give hats and mittens to people. In Venezuela, we've had children at the age of 5 begging to become volunteers. And so we give them a little job, and then they get a shirt that has the thing on it, the logo, and we say, good, now you're a volunteer, and it's your job to show the students, the new kids into the center and show them how things work and where they get their books and where they get the food. And you give them a job, a little volunteer job, unofficial job, right? And this has completely changed children's lives at times. So you could have a 5-year-old who was just miserable, hated his life. And it's not just because he didn't have clothes or shoes or food, and that's also true, but it's also because allowing him to help others gives this purpose and just really brings them to life. And then they start working with you. They become part of the team. And it makes a huge difference. So I've seen this all over the world. In terms of the COVID educational crisis, I would really say that because it is a crisis and because there's a lot of extra drama that comes with it, things that we don't have that we should, things that aren't there that should be, and extra things to have to deal with and work with, that any opportunity you can find to let children help you, help each other, help themselves, and also to make it really clear that you're there to help them is going to make a huge difference in the long term for their ability to study right now and in their education in the long run. So that's what I wanted to go over. And I think that's all I have right now. So I will turn it over to the next speaker.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Next up, we have with us is Mr. Lavooij. He's a corporate trainer and consultant who has been associated with a wide array of organizations and education institutions with more than 5 years of experience in the training domain. Volunteer in several international NGOs in India like Drug Free World India, Narcon in India, The Way to Happiness India, Applied Scholastics India, and Volunteer Ministers India. At present, the Executive Director of YHRI, co-founder of Clarity Learning Center, the CEO of Performia India and ORG Tech India, which are both training, HR, and management consultancy firms. So, sir, kindly take it.
Thank you so much, Shambhavi. And thank you, Shivam and Legporium team for organizing this webinar. Thank you, Vipul Singh and the Unique Coaching Center and all my esteemed guests. It's really a pleasure to be here today. My name is Lavooij and I'm a human rights activist. I'm the Indian representative for an organization called Youth for Human Rights International, which is the largest youth human rights movement in the world. Human rights are the most important cornerstone on which a civilization is built, right? And that's why we go out and we educate children and adults on their human rights. Look, without human rights, we have war, we have crime, we have oppression. But we as citizens have the duty of being alert constantly and make sure that human rights are not violated. Today, due to the lockdown continuing in many parts of the world, for the last so many months, we are faced with a big threat to human rights. Many of our rights have been taken away in the name of protection from the coronavirus. And one of the most important rights is the right to education. And due to the lockdown, with schools and colleges and universities being shut, we truly face a global educational crisis. I don't know if you understand that this is a global educational crisis because of COVID-19. I'll tell you why. The Indian government has pushed since the beginning to move classes online, but only 38% of Indian students have internet, as per a very recent report that came out in May 2020. Only 38% of Indian students, not worldwide, just in India, only 38% have internet access. While most of us who are here today take the internet for granted, there are over 32 crore students or 320 million students just in India who don't have internet access. Just the other day, I was actually reading the news that a milkman in the Himalayas in Dehradun or somewhere, a milkman sold his only cow for 6,000 rupees. so that he could buy a smartphone for his children's online education. He sold his only source of income to buy a smartphone for his children. That's an educational crisis, my friend. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. And today I want you to talk to you about guaranteeing the right to education of every child and improve the quality of education. The subject of my talk today is communication and education. Communication and education. Okay, this is a very unique topic and very, very relatable. So listen carefully. If you're watching TV or doing something else on another browser, shut it off. I need your attention right now. Listen to this, please. Communication, as we all know, is the most important ability any person has. Any great leader in any field has a superior ability to communicate, correct? Our success in every aspect of our life, whether it's personal, whether it's familial, whether it's social or political, depends to a very large degree on our ability to communicate. Isn't that right? The greatest artists of the world, of India, for example, like Salman Khan, Shah Rukh Khan, Madhuri Dixit, M.F. Hussain, and all the other great singers, artists, actors, Jagjit Singh, you name it. Whoever is a great artist, a great leader who is admired and loved, is only because of their superior ability to communicate. They communicate through their ideas, through emotions, through their actions, but it is all about communication. Without communication, a human being is dead. You can measure the degree of intelligence, happiness, alertness of a person by his degree of communication. Isn't that right? I'm sure you've seen little children who are very happy and they communicate with everything. You know, little babies, they communicate with the plants, the animals, they're talking to the cats and dogs, they're talking to the sky, they're talking to their toys. They're always communicating, they're in communication and they are alive, visibly alive. So communication, my friends, is the key to life. Just so that we're on the same page, let's define what communication means. Communication, for our purposes today, is an exchange of any type of particle. It's an exchange. I'm saying something, you're listening. You're saying something, I'm listening. In this case, the exchanges of particles of words, of speech, of sound. It could communication can be done through the spoken word, through the written word, even a physical object. I give you a ball, you catch it, you give it back to me. It's a communication. It can be through emotions. Art is communication through emotions. It can be through actions. It could be anything, but it's an interchange from one place to another place, from point A to point B. That's communication. So let's see what communication has to do with education, and specifically what it has to do with today's educational crisis. Communication, for all the teachers and students listening, this is very important. Communication plays the most important role in education. Education is just a special form of communication. When a teacher is giving a lecture, they are communicating to the student through words, correct? When we read a book, we are receiving a communication from the author of the book. This guy wrote a book, he wrote words to communicate some ideas, and now we're reading it. So it's a communication from the author to you or to me through words, right? So communication is very important in the field of education because that's all it is. We're reading, the absorbing of knowledge is the absorbing of communications from other people, or observation of things outside. So if we want to improve the quality of education in our schools, we need to improve the quality of communication. So if communication is so important in education, where does the problem come? The problem comes when the communication breaks. And there are many ways of breaking communication. Just today, when we were trying to get this webinar up, the internet was breaking. So many of our speakers were not able to connect. That was a break in communication. Anytime you get upset with someone, it is because there was a break in communication between you and that person. Listen to this carefully. Anytime you got upset with someone, it was because of a break in communication between you and that person. Let's see how that happens. Imagine you're sitting at the dining table playing PUBG. आप बैठे हो and you're sitting and you're playing PUBG. All your attention is in the phone, right? Your mother is telling you from the kitchen, "Beta, please come. The food is ready. Come to the table. Come eat with us." She says it once. You don't listen. You don't reply. She says it again. You don't listen. You don't reply because you're so into PUBG. She starts shouting. And she's like, "Tu abhi aa nahi to main thappad marungi." Right? She gets angry because you broke the communication. She was saying something and you didn't receive it. So what happened? Dishum. She takes the pan and boom, boom, boom. Right? Breaking communication results in upsets. So when we don't listen and we don't show that we have listened, when we don't show the other person that we have listened to what they're saying and understood what they have saying, that breaks the communication, correct? When a child comes to his mom and says, Mama, look, I've made this drawing, Mom, look. And and she's like into her WhatsApp and she's, doing something and she's not listening to the child. She's like, Mama, dekho maine drawing banai. But she doesn't respond. Mama's too busy. Mama doesn't listen. What happens to the child? The child starts feeling upset. The child starts sulking. Now he's going to be like, Mama, you look drawing mein phod deta hu. Right? The child stops talking to her mom. Why? Because the mother didn't listen to the child and the communication broke. Right? When someone is talking to you very softly, that you can't hear them, you start getting irritated because you're like, kya bol raha hai? Kya bol raha hai? Sunai nahi de raha, teez bol. You start getting irritated. You feel like you haven't received this communication. Just imagine if I start talking to you like this. You can't hear me. You're like, kya ho raha hai? Internet mein problem hai. Communication breaks. So there's many ways of breaking communication. Or if someone's talking too fast, you're like, kya bol raha hai? Samajh nahi aa raha. Or someone has an accent. You can't understand the accent, the foreign accent. Like, when Indians go to America and we talk like this, hello, my name is, they make fun of us because, they don't understand sometimes. It's a break in communication. Whenever there is a break in communication, you start getting irritated, you start feeling upset, and you start losing interest. Whenever you feel like you're losing interest, you're getting bored, it's because you're starting to have breaks in communication. I had a teacher who used to work for me. He used to teach some students. Great teacher, amazing guy, lovely guy, great teacher. But वो इतनी तेज पढ़ाता था, blah 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 blah, history blah 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 blah, that none of the children could understand him. He was a teacher, very nice guy, very good in his knowledge. But just because he was so fast in his communication, the education broke. The parents would complain that he's not a good teacher. The children would complain that हमारे बच्चों को ढंग से पढ़ा नहीं रहा है, कुछ समझ नहीं आ रहा है. But it wasn't his fault. It wasn't that he was not teaching. It was actually just because of the break in communication, right? He was not communicating. He was being a train. So there are many ways of breaking communication. Just realize one thing. Whenever you feel upset, whenever you feel angry, whenever you feel tired, whenever you feel sleepy, not interested, or anything else, it is because of a break in communication. Okay? So see how important this is for education. Many times when we have a fight or we have an argument with a friend or a family member, it's just sometimes, mostly, if you look at all the times you had a fight or an argument with somebody, you will realize that it was just because you didn't understand the communication of the person. Like sometimes, घरों में politics की वजह से बहुत लड़ाई हो जाती है. Actually, there was this news recently that one couple actually ended their marriage because they had such a big fight on Modi, right? So what happened? The one person was communicating and the other person was communicating, but they weren't understanding each other. They weren't telling each other कि मैं समझ रहा हूँ तुम क्या कह रहे हो. The one person was pro Modi, one person was against Modi, so they just kept fighting because there was a break in understanding, there's a break in communication. And mostly, whenever there's a break in communication, it's because there's a misunderstanding, right? And because we communicate, this is very important. Listen to this carefully. Because we communicate mostly through language, through words, through English or Hindi or Urdu or Punjabi or any language, it is usually because we didn't understand the word we used in the communication. The fight, the upset, the break in communication is coming because there was a word in the communication that was not understood. For example, if I start talking to you in French in this webinar, you will start getting angry and you will leave the webinar because you don't understand. Like if I start saying le petit détour pelot qu'il est nistu en astéroïde et le cricon nombreux rencontrés étrangers de voyage, you're like pagal ho gaya ye banda, right? Because now I started using a lot of words, a lot of languages that you don't understand, and that's a break in communication. Whenever there's a break in communication, you will start losing interest, you will start getting bored, you will start thinking I'm crazy. But the break in communication, guys, is just the one word or the words in the sentence that I'm saying. And that's what leads to the misunderstanding. That's what leads to the upset. This is applicable in real life. And this is applicable in the classroom, online classes. It is very much applicable to education. Why? Because if I say this sentence, I'm going to say one sentence. The children got quiet during the crepuscule and started going off to sleep. What happened? Did you understand what I said? You thought you understood what I said, but there was a break in communication. You see what happened here? There was one word you didn't understand. So you didn't get the full idea that I was trying to say to you. The one word was crepuscule, which means twilight, or sanj in Hindi. Sanj ka, sanj. When the time of the day, when the sun is setting, when there is, the sun is towards the horizon, and it's a little dark but light. That's also known as crepuscule. Now you know what crepuscule means. So I'm going to say the sentence again and see if I can communicate better. The children got quiet during the crepuscule and started going off to sleep. Did you now understand me better? Did you understand or get a better concept of the sentence? Right? That's communication. That's education. This is the biggest secret in education. We see children losing interest, not attending classes. We see them getting angry or doing stupid things like bunking, doodling and writing with compass and whiteners on their tables. We see teachers getting frustrated and angry and even beating children, all because of breaks in communication, and nobody realizes that. Since childhood, look, this is applicable to you. Since childhood, there have been many, many words in our books that we didn't understand, and we continued reading. There were breaks in communication. It just kept building up. We didn't understand many words, and the breaks kept piling up, and eventually there's this teenager in class 8 or class 9 or class 10 who just hates studying. वो बिल्कुल नहीं पढ़ता, मतलब उसको कोई इंटरेस्ट ही नहीं बचा पढ़ने में. He just hates it, or he acts dumb, or he just can't understand because these little breaks in communication, these little misunderstood words have piled up. And now we try to beat him, we try to punish him, we try to scold him. But the simple fact is, there were just too many breaks in communication. And because he didn't understand the words of the subject, now he lost interest in studying. So this then means if we are to become successful students, successful teachers, we need to learn how to communicate. If we can communicate, we can be successful in any area of our life. Trust me, this is the secret. How do you increase communication? How can you communicate better? How can you communicate better? Would you like to communicate better? One of the ways you can increase your communication is to learn and understand the meanings of words, because words are one of the primary methods we use to communicate, so that you can understand other people's communications when you understand what they're saying, and you can communicate to others in a better way and express yourself to the fullest. That's the power of words. So, and you know, this has been known for so many years. Like in IIT, in IIM exams, in IAS entrance, you know, it was a requisite. It still is a requisite to have a large vocabulary. I know so many people who are IIT, IIM graduates who actually memorized the entire Oxford dictionary. That was their size of the vocabulary. So now they could communicate and understand and, you know, express themselves more. They did remember a lot of words. I'm not telling you to memorize the dictionary. I'm trying to make you aware that you should focus and pay attention to words and to communication, because that is the essence of education and that is the essence of success. So this is how you can improve your levels of communication, correct? Now you can control your level of interest also in any area. If you start feeling bored during my talk, that's because there was a break in communication. Maybe it was a word, maybe it was something you didn't understand, but there's always a break in communication. So whenever you feel bored or disinterested in a conversation or while studying, realize that there has been a break in communication and quickly go back and find it. Find the word you didn't understand. Check the meaning of it in the dictionary and your interest will come back again. This is a fact, it's a scientifically proven fact, right? So this is how you can now increase your communication. This is how you can actually increase your education level. You can be a better teacher, a better student, a better human being. And if we all follow this, the world will truly change. So now you know how to improve your communication. Now you know what to do to handle the global crisis. This is what we need to do. We need to stand together and help those in need. We need to stand together, unite, and help those in need. We need to take control of the situation. We need to take control of the situation, like Mr. Jacobus mentioned. We need to help those in need, like Megan mentioned. We need to improve our communication and communicate our knowledge, and together we can defeat the COVID educational crisis and we can win. So thank you so much, guys. Have a great evening, and I am very excited to have the next speaker.
Thank you so much, sir. It was very interesting. Next up, we have, last but definitely not the least, Mr. William Tucker. He is the co-founder of Charity United and Clarity Learning Center. He is an international educational specialist, having done education workshops and projects both in universities, colleges, private schools, as well as in slums. His passion is improving society through education, and as such, he has over 30 years of experience in organizing NGOs, charities, so that they're effective and get the job done. He is one of the most knowledgeable, dedicated, and ambitious man I've ever come across. So, kindly go ahead.
Hello. Thank you very much, and welcome in joining me. I want to thank both Jacobus Lavooij, Mr. Avi Vatsa, and Ms. Megan Tucker for their wonderful speeches. I called this meeting or this online conference over the Corona, educational crisis which exists. I've been having a bit of an internet crisis myself, so my computer is down. I'm having to do this from my cell phone. So if you're wondering why I'm sitting outside, I finally found a spot where I had internet connection because I really wanted the opportunity to talk to all of you. All three speakers, have brought up unique and very valuable and pertinent points to education and crisis, namely health, control, communication, and interest. Help, control, and communication. When those points are aligned, when you have those points in on an educational program, you will find out that your students tend to excel. It's the method, that we use in Charity United, because we found, that this method works really well. But back to the educational crisis. Actually, there was an educational crisis before. There's roughly 800 million children around the world, whose education is insufficient. Who are not getting the chance, who are not able to excel or succeed in life the way they want to. And I think this is something that together we can actually address. Here in India, this situation is unique in that you do most of your education in your own language, Hindi, and then all of a sudden you switch to English. But you don't have a solid foundation in English, right? And I see this all the time with students, I have this poor student who's 16, 17 years old. He was doing incredibly well in chemistry. I consider him a genius. Then he gets to year 11. And all of a sudden, his chemistry book switches from Hindi to English. Well, now he's failing, right? Now he's failing. Why? Not because he's stupid. No, he is brilliant. It's just he doesn't have a solid foundation in English. Whereas English may be important as a trade language, it certainly doesn't matter whether you study science or electronics or physics or law or any of those subjects, in your own language. Regardless of that, since the world is going international and international trade, it is valuable to have English, but only as a trade language. I've gone through the English teaching courses in India now, and actually many other countries as well. And I find that they are fundamentally flawed, right? Because they don't follow the natural language learning patterns. Now, you all speak fluent Hindi or your native tongue. English is my second language too, just so you know. So I know what it means to switch languages. But there's a natural way of learning languages. And it doesn't start with reading and grammar. It starts by learning to speak with very little attention to the grammar. So as part of Charity United and together with Unique Coaching Center, I'm doing a pilot in several slums where we took teenagers from the slums, and this is all on Megan's, Jaap's, and Avi's advice, right? We took Megan's advice on, okay, let people help. So we found teenagers who wanted to help with the education, okay? I started giving them some extra tutoring and classes on how to teach English. And we have a very, very simple method that really focuses on first learning the words of objects by pointing at them, right? And for kids, children, even adults learning a second language, the first thing you want to do is know objects, the names of objects. You want to know what's floor, or what's sky, Asman, right? Or what's door, Devazo. You need to know the objects so you have something to learn the rest of the language with. Now, once you know the name of about 200 or 300 objects in a language, you can add action words or verbs, right? Because now your mind can logically start stringing them together. But, there's a very easy way to teach children or adults objects. All you have to do is, point at an object and you say, hey, where's the child or adult instantly associates in the mind the object with the sound you're making, right? Where's the wall? Where's the floor? Where's the sky? Where's the plant? Where's the tree? And this goes over and over and over in order to build familiarity with the objects, right? Later you can add walk, right? Children do the action as you're doing this. Walk to the plant, walk to the tree, add another action word, touch the tree or feel the tree, right? But you do this with all the objects in the environment over and over, half an hour a day, until the child is familiar with the right? And only once he has a spoken vocabulary of about 500 to 1,000 words, do you switch to reading. And you have to start with simple books that are only the words that he knows. Because and this is, Avi brought this up. If you don't know the meaning of a word, or in a foreign language, the meaning of a sound, you will have an incredible amount of trouble trying to read, because you go out of communication with the book. You can't understand. The message is not getting across into your mind. So, as I said, we're doing a very, very basic approach that, however, is scientifically proven to work exceedingly fast. We go into a slum and we'll start our program. And the first day, the children will know 5 or 10 words. The second day, they'll know 20 words. The third day, they're actually already starting to speak. And the adults and people around are in shock at how fast this goes. Well, we really take the help approach, right? And we get a teenager in the slum to help us. We allow them to participate. The foundation of this language program is first speaking, only knowing objects or the names of objects in the environment, then the actions, and only once he's got spoken English, and we don't focus on the grammar yet, do we switch to reading. Because now you're not trying to learn reading and speaking at the same time, okay? Once we get them through the reading stage, then they go into the writing stage, and now we start adding grammar. But it's only after he is thoroughly familiar with speaking, then reading, writing, and now grammar. Okay? And what's amazing about this method is you find out that you'll get 5 years of education done in a few months. So here's where I'm getting back to Corona educational crisis. We have a crisis where children have been out of school for almost half a year now. We don't really have enough resources, because I know teachers and professors, including myself, even under normal times, we are running just to try and keep up with the normal workload. Now we've missed half a year, right? So is my feeling we kind of need to connect up. We need to put a sensible plan in place, that takes into account help, good control, and really being in communication with the children, teenagers, doesn't matter what age level, so that we can recover these 6 months of lost school. And on top of that, we already had a crisis in education without the coronavirus, right? So, when disasters happen, good people come together, right? The good people come together and they band together and they get shoulder to shoulder in order to figure out the solution. And it is my sincere belief that as educators, as teachers, as students, as volunteers, we can be bigger than this crisis, okay? We can band together. We can form a network, and we can go in and tackle this educational crisis at the root simply by laying in a solid foundation, okay? A solid language learning foundation to give children that additional support they need. We have a program. It takes about an hour a day. It can be done directly in a slum. It can be done in a school. It can be done anywhere, okay? And I invite your participation. We'd be more than happy to work with anyone so that we really, confront, address, and tackle this coronavirus educational crisis. Because if we don't do so, we're going to lose a generation, okay? We're going to lose a generation. They've been out of school too long. School is the foundation of society. Teachers are the foundation of society. Without teachers, the society goes downhill. So a society is only as powerful as it is educated. So this is my plea. This is my call to action. Please contact us or leave your email in the comments. We'd love your participation. We'd love to sit down and work out how can we help you in your area? How can we help us? How can we take control and get education back on the rails? Thank you so much for taking time to listen to us. I appreciate everybody, attended this conference. And again, I want to thank speakers, Ms. Megan Tucker, for her wonderful input and her hard work. I want to thank Mr. Jacobus Lavooij for his, excellent insights into control and language and society, and Mr. Avivas, for his wonderful lecture on communication and how it relates to understanding. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. On behalf of all of us here, I would like to thank all of you, all the honorable panelists. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation for the kind of work you all have been doing. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank all the people who have participated overwhelmingly and making this event a success. So officially, this event is closed now. Thank you so much for your cooperation. Thank you.